Why do pre-built gaming PCs get such a bad rap online? Well, it's because most of the systems out there that these pre-built manufacturers build only focus on what I call the headline spec. That's a CPU, GPU, RAM, and storage combo that they happen to sell you in the headline of any listing online. And for the uninformed customer, they'll just look for that spec, because a majority of the time, that's going to give you exactly what you're looking for as far as the FPS in games. But there's a lot more going on to a system than just that, and that's why these systems end up with so many problems. And this CyberPower PC is a great example, because inside here we have a Ryzen 7 7800X3D, which is one of the best CPUs for gaming, an RTX 4070 Super, a 2TB SSD, and 32GB of RAM, which sounds pretty good on paper, and that's exactly what it's designed to do, until you realize everything else that surrounds it. Like this cheap case that was so focused on the aesthetic portion of having this little RGB light here that it sacrifices the airflow of the system by obstructing the bottom fan and part of the middle fan here up front. And it's just completely unnecessary, but this is what sells in stores. And when you get inside the system, it becomes even more clear how they cut corners, like using a micro ATX board in an ATX case. Why would you even want to do something like that? Well, micro ATX motherboards are about 10 to 15% cheaper than their ATX counterparts, which I'm all for the cost savings if it gets passed off to the consumer, but the problem is these consumers don't realize that they're actually missing out on a lot of extra features, including lackluster VRM cooling and only 2 M.2 slots for expandability. Oh yeah, and by the way, there's only 3 fan headers on this entire motherboard, which is why all the fans have to be daisy chained together. And while we're talking about the motherboard, let's talk about this M.2 drive from ADATA, who is definitely not known for the best reliability out there, but the bigger problem with this drive is how slow it is. See, typically something like a Gen 4 SSD can run around 7,400 megabytes per second. Well, this drive only runs around 3,500 at max speeds. Don't get me wrong, it's still fast, but it's a fraction of the speed that you would expect for a modern PC these days. Which means you're technically going to get some slower boot times, loading times, and transfer speeds than what you would expect. But I'm more concerned about the reliability of those ADATA drives anyways, but yeah, that's still something to be concerned with. And then coming around back, this is really where my problem comes with a lot of pre-built systems. It has to do with the power supply that they use. See, this is a non-modular, non-labeled power supply from a no-name brand. That is something I would never put in a PC, because you're just waiting for that thing to blow up on you. And trust me, I've seen it time and time again. Although not every pre-built system is bad out there, it's a lot of these systems that usually get bought off the shelf that have the biggest problems, just because they're all focused on show and no go.